Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Leeor Goldberg. Leeor is someone I've known for a little while now, and we have some really good, productive conversations. Leeor has got strong experience as a CIO, group CIO, CTO. But the one thing that we share is that we both work with organizations that are going through major change. So between us, we've got some good anecdotal examples and case studies of things that we've seen before. The one thing that always resonates with me is when Leeor says something along the lines of, it depends how much the CEO wants to be involved. And I really like that approach because over the years, I've seen some CEOs be great sponsors of transformational change, and I've seen other CEOs that, quite frankly, don't want to be involved, especially in technology-enabled transformational change. And from Leo's perspective, both are okay. It's how you deal with it, how you handle it. But I'll talk no more. I'll pass over to Leo. Why don't you just introduce yourself?
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for having me. I think that you touched briefly. Yes, I've been, I think, about 20 something years in the industry.
Yeah.
Started as a, actually developer. My first degree is in engineering, computer science. And then went through those kind of ranks of being a team leader, a technical project manager, up to a VP R&D. And then I did an MBA with two majors, one in marketing and the other one in strategy, starting from a specific area in the business and then growing up in the ranks had allowed me to see the whole picture. And then there is a crossover when you go to management, which you try to cut off the jargon. So on one hand, you're able to speak with the developer, with the solution architect, with others, because you're coming from that kind of an area. But on the other end, when you are speaking with senior stakeholders and especially chief execs, they want the bottom line, they want the business impact, they want it brief, and they want to know things without you overcomplicating or throwing different things that are not really clear to them.
Yep. And am I right in thinking you've got a broad range of experience in terms of the size of client? Because I know you from leading the technology function for a business which employed, I think, about 70,000 employees. And then you've also been in sort of startup businesses where it's been a handful of employees. Is that right? Have I remembered that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Different sizes. I've been in a few scale-up companies in my early career, and then in a few medium companies, and then some FTSE 100 companies. So it varies from different sizes. If you ask me, I've enjoyed both worlds. Smaller companies, large companies, both have different advantages and obviously disadvantages.
Yeah, well, I always think it's good to bring best practice from each of them. And I'd always prefer to have someone to have depth and breadth of experience than just depth. I was reminded of a little story, which I'll tell you if I may, when you said along the lines of the CEO's appetite for the technology change part. I was with a quite a prominent UK CEO, big business, big business, and he said he brought out his iPhone and he pressed the button on his iPhone. He said, "See, Mark, that just works. That's what I want IT to do. That's what the application on your phone." He went, "No, I just want it to work." Yeah. It was really quite enlightening. But yeah, so tell me about your viewpoint in terms of a good sponsor for this type of change. How do you view it? Do you view it a little bit differently from some of the other technology leaders I've met with?
I think it depends on the person, right? The stakeholder, the specific stakeholder, which is the sponsor or the chief executive, like leading the company, which we are currently running a large program for. And it depends on, his or her character, and the things that on his or her desk, right? It might be that the desk is very full with other things, and as you mentioned, just want things to work. Give him the highlights, and he's done with that, right? There are CEOs that want to know more. I think if you ask me, I think that there are three maybe categories for that one. I will say CEOs would like to see, and I'm saying CEOs, but it can be very senior stakeholder. That's the same thing. It can be visual, right? Some CEOs like visual, something short. I remember even with one of the CEOs, very large company, which I was actually told in upfront that he doesn't like long presentations, doesn't like long slides, and he have a very short span of attention. So what I did, I've actually drew something on an A4 page, and that was my roadmap, right, for the company. It sounds a bit funny, but that was enough for him to understand that I'm going to pull the data to one data lake, and I'm going to put a couple of different layers, and then I'm going to create a website and a mobile app. And in this kind of an A4, that was a perfect presentation of what we're going to do in the next year. And that was good for him, right? He then asked some numbers and some KPIs, but that was my green light. Go off, do your own thing. I understood what you're going to do. It's very, very clear, and I've tried to articulate it with no specific jargon, just a couple of simple words, simple drawings, and that was fine for him. So this, I would say, the visual ones, right? I think the other ones would be written updates, and I had that with different types of managers. I think most of them would like some sort of email in the end of the week telling them, the couple of more things that are important to them, and done with that. If he or she has a question, they will reply back and just say, bullet number 14, what do you mean? Or can you clarify a bit more, right?
Yeah.
And another manager that called it the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? He wants to see in the report 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And funny enough, when he told me in the beginning, I was a bit laughing, but when I wrote the first report, it really resonated why he wanted that kind of a way, right? Because he can screen immediately and understand the criticality of things, right? So obviously the good, it's good to know, keep on track, off you go, unless there is some sort of a deviation with the budget or something like that, then it would probably come up in other sections, right? So the good is usually something that would just screen, get an update.
Yeah.
Bad is something that I am telling him, listen, something is popping up. Either I'm expecting some sort of a delay or some sort of a overrun with the budget or things like that, or we might have a problem. But it's something that I'm aware of and I'm updating him, right?
Yeah.
And the ugly is usually something that went wrong, right? And he would be focusing on that one. And then I think what is important to him is to see what is the business impact, right? What anything that can jeopardize any growth of the business, right? Any revenues that might be impacted from that, any customer service that might be impacted from that. And we had those where we had people problem with the booking, people coming up with complaints that they did booking, they didn't have a proper spot. We had a guy looking at our website, finding a few things and coming up with with actually some sort of a claim to the company that the website is not GDPR compliant. So that can be something coming up for an issue. So those kinds of things. So this is, I call it the written notification, written updates. And this is the second, I think, type. The third type is in person, right? A CEO or a stakeholder want you to meet them either bi-monthly one or each week in the end of the week, and it can vary between 10 minutes to half an hour. This is the give or take. Usually it comes out to about 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. That's all. I've been with a large group CEO. We had a weekly meeting. It's not always took place, but when it took place, it was about 20 minutes. Give me the things, what would I need to know, what is bubbling up, and if anything that you need at my decision or for me to step in or something like that, or any support.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
okay.
these are the three categories I would say.
I like the fact that you can categorize them. I always think that every leader has their own special way, and it's probably more special to them than what it is to everyone else. And then when you get people that are very experienced, it allows them to go, okay, yeah, I've seen this before, and I can understand exactly how you want me to communicate with you. And can I suggest maybe we do it this way, which is how you want it in this format? And I could only imagine the clients going, great, you're listening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Exactly.
um, to try and ascertain that, to try and understand how they want to be communicated with, how do you do that? So, it's day one, you're hired, you've been through the hiring process, so we all know how that can feel a little artificial at times. So you're hired, you walk through the door, and there's a big job to do. How do you ascertain how that person wants to be communicated with? How do you ascertain their appetite for this?
Yeah. So usually after we have our intro, what I would try to have in the end of the conversation, at least if this CEO or the stakeholder didn't approach that, I would ask him what might be the KPIs or how he would see a success. So probably they have something in their mind. From my experience, funny enough, when you speak with the very senior CEOs of very large companies, they don't have any agenda for you, right? They will give you an overlook of the business, about 15 minutes, 20 minutes of what's going on, what their targets are, and then they would expect you to be completely by your own, have
Yeah,
your own priorities, and they obviously will run through their priorities. So growth, usually it would be expanding to new markets, expanding globally. But on the other hand, they want to make sure that there is security, that the organization is secured, data is secured. We have a good relationship with our customers. Um, and we are not violating anything around compliance, right? So those would be the main 5, 6 points that they might have on
yeah,
their agenda. And then they would just some sort of say, how can IT, work with those kinds of guidelines, right? Can you make sure that we are going around those things and you're supporting the business? And usually what I would say, that was my usual method is, I would offer, and usually they will take it, that I will interview most of the senior stakeholders, get their needs, write those kinds of things down, and then sit down on my desk, whittle those kinds of requests, because everyone that I will meet will have 10, 15 projects in the pipeline for me, right?
yeah, of course.
And obviously the blanket is short, and I need to go back to the CEO and present this kind of a plan, right? What am I going to do, right? So
Yeah,
I have 30 projects in the pipeline. However, from looking at the budget in most companies, you can do 10 or 15, right? Both budget, resources, and some other stuff, and also some risks, right? You don't want to do a new ERP system and then another 10, 15 other projects, right?
yeah,
That's a bit of a risk. So you need to make the right decision around the project. So I usually do some sort of a business case with each one of the stakeholders and try to see that those projects are making sense. Then I will go back to the CEO and say, listen, this is what I think we should do this year. How do you want me to communicate this? Would a meeting once 2 weeks covering the whole of the projects would be good for you? Or you rather have some sort of a report? You rather me sending some sort of a presentation and then for us to have a catch up face to
yeah,
face? And then usually I get a sense of how they would like to achieve that, right? They usually say, well, can you do a short presentation and just send it to me by Friday, right? Tick, I got that. And then what I do later on, I try to listen to the feedback. So let's say that I've sent 10 slides of a deck. And then if I get certain amount of questions back, can you elaborate on this? Can you clarify that? I understand that the 10 is not enough, that probably for each project I need a couple of slides more, right?
yeah,
On the other hand, he might not even answer the deck. And then I will do a follow-up and ask him how was the deck. And then by the reaction, I will see, some of the CEOs actually don't have time to read the deck, right? So what I might do on the first instance actually is I will summarize just a couple of notes on the email when I'm touching the deck. So I will say, we have 10 projects running in. This is the 5 important ones. 3 of those, and you know what? Another very nice tip, and it sounds very, very funny. I will color code it.
Yep.
All of my reports are either green, amber, or red, right?
Yeah, standard.
So you scan that, immediately see where there is a problem, where things are going well, and if it needs to step in or ask anything else.
Yeah, that's a nice way to do it. I mean, nothing in this is groundbreakingly new in terms of, we've all seen the green, amber, red. Don't make it complicated. Use what you have, but communicate it in the right way. One of the questions I've been dying to ask you is that, so let's say you start a program, let's say it's an ERP implementation. We know that can be disruptive if it's not run properly. But the question that you ask the CEO, which is, how much do you want to be involved? Or the question you ask the sponsor is, how much do you want to be involved? How does a CEO, how does a key stakeholder, a program sponsor, how do they react when you ask them that question? Because a default, I'm sure that everyone listening will go, well, of course I want to be involved. It's my program. But the truth is that's not always the case, is it?
Yeah. In most cases that I've been in, if there is a CFO, then the CEO would just want to get a very, very light update. And I would even say almost a WhatsApp update on the problem. This is the amount of involvement that he wants. So if the CFO is involved, if the CFO is like the sponsor of the program, and he doesn't hear the CFO rushing to his office with screams, then he's fine with that, right? It's enough for you to say, even on a WhatsApp in the end of the week, everything went well this week, all according to the program that we have scheduled up front. Budget is okay. And he would just say, brilliant, thank you for the update, and that's that. And I had a CEO that actually wanted some sort of a quick update on WhatsApps.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what we're getting across here is that as you come in as an interim manager to deliver something that is, monumental change in terms of how the business is tracking, or if it's not a major business issue, then it's a definite sort of board request that's important to the board, that, the board member involved can have as much participation as they want. But it's up to them to communicate that with you, and it's up to you to extract that information out of them at the same time.
Yeah. I had, for example, in another company, just maybe on the other side, we had to do a compliance program back a few good years ago. UK law has changed for that kind of a specific industry, and I had to run through the whole business, which was a very large business, a compliance program.
Yeah,
which touched all of the elements. And I can tell you that the CEO was very into it. Every 2 weeks, I had to present about 25 minutes of where we at. We give a few minutes for questions, and then that has been repeated for for a year and a half, because that program was so significant. Because in the end of it, if that kind of an organization wouldn't get his license back, he wouldn't be able to operate. So the CEO was actually in the details.
Yeah, we found that, especially in regulated businesses, then it can take more of a priority. But I think that's a great thing about working with someone that's very experienced, that's worked with a breadth of organizations, that you've seen a lot of different behaviors from the program sponsor, to CEO, to CFO. And actually, it's not your approach that's a standardized approach. Their approach is already standardized, so why not just fit into their approach? I think that's how most interim managers work. We'd say they're a little bit like chameleons, that they adapt to where the clients are. For this particular subject, I think it's safe to say that if any CEOs or board sponsor is listening to this, they should feel a little bit more assured that they don't have to go through a cookie cutter model in order to get the information that they need. They should just be a bit upfront about what they need, how they want it, and the interim manager will adapt. So, and I think you've explained that really well. So thank you.
Maybe one thing to maybe note here, at least my opinion, right? I never judge, right? So if the CEO wants to be very much involved, that's fine. If the CEO wants, taking to the extreme, right, a WhatsApp update once every Friday, that's also fine. I never judge because I don't know his situation, here or her situation. You know, the amount of pressure that there is on a CEO, and especially group CEO or a FTSE CEO, is enormous. You know, the last thing that he wants to hear now is a lot of blabber around IT, and my DevOps is working well or not well, and that kind of a small project is running. You know, he's not interested in that, right? He have to keep his eye on the big picture. Right, and if I distract him even for half an hour, for an hour, it's not a good use of his time, right? He has enough things to worry about than the IT. And as you mentioned in the beginning, right, there is a big portion of that. Just make it working, right? Yeah, have that work rather than me taking care of that, right? The other things that might be interesting for him or her is the innovation. So those things that might be a bit more interested, or you might want to elaborate more, because that would, that would drive more revenues or better experience. So there are some, certain things that they might be a bit more interested, but overall, they have enough on their plate. So I never judge the involvement. I'm fine with both things on the spectrum, right?
Yeah, well, that's experience talking. Leeor, thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you. Hopefully see you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks.